guys, my name is Annie, and today I'm going to talk to y'all about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome type 3 because May is EDS Awareness Month, so I'm just going to share my story, my experiences with this to the best of my ability. So to start with, as a child, I had a few signs that should have pointed to my having EDS. I was having constant stomach pain all the time, every day. I was always constipated. I would usually go to the restroom like maybe once every 2 or 3 days. I was always the first kid out of breath at any sports that I was doing. My face was red, I was out of breath, I was so tired, and I was little. I was like petite and everything, so it was very weird and odd. The other thing is I could like raise my arm up and back to where my shoulder would pop partially out, and it would be like this big ball underneath my arm. And my mom took me to the doctor constantly to try and figure out what was wrong with me, but they never diagnosed me with anything, and they never figured anything out. Pretty typical. So fast forward to high school, I played tennis my freshman and sophomore year. Very athletic. So athletic that by my second year playing tennis, my sophomore year, I almost went to state. That summer, after sophomore year, I started working as a photographer in Schlitterbahn. And so that's a water park, by the way. So that job was very athletic. It took me miles and miles and miles every day to walk from station to station to station to station. And when I was at the stations, I would usually be standing or walking against a really strong current, catching people's really heavy tubes, and then having to ask them, hey, can I get y'all's picture? And I had to take a minimum of 350 pictures a day. And they had to be of more than one person, so I couldn't just have one nice person who wanted to take a bunch. They had that loophole covered. So it was very, very athletic, is what I'm trying to say. But towards the end of that summer, my knees, just my health in general, my joint health started deteriorating. My knees started having a lot of pain. I was barely able to finish that job because I started having trouble walking. So I finished that job, I started up school my junior year, and my knees were so bad at that point, I could barely walk at school. I was late to my classes just because I was walking slow. My hips also felt really weird. They kind of hurt, but they also just felt out of place. And then the other issue I was having was I could barely carry my backpack because my shoulders were really in a lot of pain at that time. Both of my shoulders were just hurting so bad. And I kept my backpack really heavy because I was OCD about having all of my stuff in my backpack at all times. So that didn't really help. And I had a bunch of AP and dual credit classes. And because of all my health issues, I had a lot of appointments with doctors in Houston, which was out of town for me, because those were supposed to be the good doctors. And so I had tons of appointments, couldn't walk, couldn't carry things, so I ended up not being able to stay at that school. I had to transfer to an alternative high school. And this high school was also the high school where all of the kids went after juvie, or if their parents were scared of them going there. That's short for juvenile prison, like the high school criminals. So most of the kids were like that with behavioral problems, and so it was a little bit scary for me, and I didn't really have a lot of friends there. So that was interesting. That Christmas, my knees were hurting so bad. I tried to go Christmas shopping one time with my mom, and I couldn't. And I was pretty distraught over that, and just my immobility in general. And so she bought me a scooter that Christmas, so that I could get around. She got it early so I could go Christmas shopping with my scooter. And then I met up with a friend who had been diagnosed with EDS and since then has been diagnosed with a bunch of other things as well. And I told her about my symptoms, and she told me what I actually ended up having. I went to a geneticist and got officially diagnosed with EDS. And then I started going to PT. The PT wasn't really helpful. They weren't equipped for anything that was rare, in my opinion, because they just didn't really help me out very much, even though they were nice. So all that time, up until I graduated, I was still using my scooter. I was still suffering. I could not carry my own backpack. I had to have the teacher help me a lot of times, and my boyfriend at the time would help me when he could carry it. And so that was weird for me, because I was totally dependent on other people for what felt like everything, or my scooter. And so that was like that up until when I graduated. I had just had tons of appointments. I was just miserable. I ended up graduating early, and I enrolled in a university, and I kind of had it made. I had a bottom floor dorm. I had a place for my scooter in the living room. The disability counselor was very nice. They made sure all my classes were accessible for me. But I ended up leaving after 4 weeks because I was really lonely, and I felt different from everyone. My boyfriend at the time was stressing me out on every single phone call with him. And all the other kids were always like on their phones almost all the time, and so I felt really lonely because people didn't really talk and they didn't do things. They were just like always on their phones. And so I felt lonely. It was hard. The printing station was 3 floors up, so that was the one accommodation they really missed, was that. And I had to print a lot of stuff all the time. So anyway, I ended up leaving. I came back home, and my boyfriend admitted to having gotten close to another girl while I was at college, and he admitted to kissing her. So I broke up with him, and I felt betrayed, and I had just all those questions and feelings that are pretty normal. It was also my first boyfriend, so it was really bad emotionally for me at that time. But I started focusing on my health again, trying to see if there was something I could do. So I went to a doctor who x-rayed my knees, and it turns out that the bones in my knees are misaligned. And he said, look, I can do surgery on your knees to align the bones, but they're going to go right back because it's not the bones that are the problem, it's the connective tissue in between them. It's the glue that holds them together, but it doesn't really hold them together very well. And so they're going to go back no matter how many times I try and do surgery. So he referred me to a different PT. I started going there, and I did learn one really useful thing from that PT, which was the stationary bike, which is to this day the best thing for my knees. So eventually I got done with that PT. I got a gym membership, and I only got it so I could use the stationary bike. I used the stationary bike at that gym, and then I started branching out and using other things like the treadmill. I used a certain machine for my abs, which I think was based on a picture I saw that it was like this girl, and it just mostly had, it was like from here to like the top of her shorts, and the words, she had really good abs, and the words were "show him what he lost." And so at the time, it was right after my breakup, so that was really motivating for me. So I had the motivation of my breakup. I had the motivation of having been in a scooter for a couple of years after being a really athletic person. I was like sick and tired of being sick and tired. So, and then I was really trying to rely on God at that time. I was reading my Bible a lot. I was praying a lot. And so I had a lot of power within me at that time. So I was just branching out at the gym, learning a lot of things. And eventually I got out of the breakup mentality. I realized that nobody should be treated the way that he treated me. And you know, after 4 weeks, that is so lame. It's unbelievably lame of him. Anyway, so I got out of that mentality, and I started just more doing it for myself, doing the exercising for myself to conquer my EDS, and to be more mobile, to be able to walk, to be able to pick something up. And since then, now I can squat 167.5 pounds. I can lunge the same amount on both sides. I can do the abductor adductor machines, which are thigh machines. I can do those at, I think, 165 pounds. I can do the stairs. I can do a treadmill at a really high slope for a long time. I can do the calf machines. Basically, if there's something in the gym, I have mostly figured out the method to doing it. The only exception is if it's something where when you start the exercise, your joint is already out of place, I don't do those. Those are a no-go because it's just not safe. It's just common sense. Don't do those if your joint is already out of place when you are doing the exercise. So, all that to say, I can walk now, I can run if I want. I have a couple limitations with my shoulders. I will say one issue I have had and still have not conquered is my collarbone. One time this old lady fell down and I picked her up. This was when my EDS was really bad. I picked her up with my right arm and pulled her up to where she was standing and helped her get in her wheelchair. And so you can see my collarbone is protruding even right now, and that was years ago. And ever since then, every time I pick anything up like that, my collarbone goes out again, and it gets really painful, and it pokes out really hard. So I don't lift a lot with my arms. I don't do like dumbbells where I'm carrying weight in my hands. I carry the weight on my back, like with the bar back/shoulders. That's how I can do the heavy squatting and the heavy lunging. And I found that that's very effective. I go easy on my shoulders, and I really train my core and my lower body the most. Yeah, those are my main problem areas. My knees are not aligned, but I'm working on the muscles around them, my quads and everything. My hips always, a lot of times, feel really weird and kind of out of place. But they're not in pain, so that's okay. I'm working on those muscles anyway. My core is strong. My collarbone, I'm still just kind of working on lifting less heavy things so I can prevent it from going out. Thankfully, the dislocation is outward and not inward, because the outward ones are a lot less dangerous. My shoulders, they still have some pain. So I just don't lift really heavy things with them, just because they're such an unstable joint in general. Shoulders are just very unstable, and then when you have a connective tissue problem, they're really, really unstable. So that's where I am kind of with everything with my EDS right now. But yeah, if you're interested in, if you're suffering with your EDS, you can't walk, you can't function, anything, definitely check out my other videos, because they're on the exercises I do for my EDS, and I have like different ways of doing it than just the regular typical way, different modifications and stuff that will probably help you out. So check out my other videos, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and happy EDS Awareness Month.